All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cult Musical Zone. And today we're going to talk about the criminally underrated and fabulous cult movie musical, Teen Witch. Now, we have two opposing forces to talk about the cult musical classic that is Teen Witch. But before we get started, we can introduce ourselves.
Okay. So my name is Walker Davis. I live here in Atlanta, and I'm an artist, and I work for an art gallery. And Teen Witch has been one of my favorite movies since I was probably like 10. I remember seeing it on the Disney Channel years and years ago, and then I thought, wow, this is like the greatest movie because it's like, wow, can't you just believe what high school is going to be like when you get there? And I've always thought I loved it. I fell in love with the character of Louise because she was the underdog, and then she ends up getting the hot guy, and she's a witch, and she becomes the most popular girl in school. So, and but then she kind of realized that she really didn't need that magic because it was like she had all the power herself. So it's a good message.
Thank you, Walker. I agree 1000%. Ashley, introduce yourself.
It is a good message. I agree with that. I am Ashley Scout. I'm here in Orlando, Florida. I visit Rocky Horror in different states. I have 11 to go. Pretty exciting. I saw Teen Witch. A friend told me about it years ago. She's like, Teen Witch, Teen Witch, Teen Witch. And I literally was like, are you talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch? Like, OG, like not the new one, the weird one. And she's like, no, Teen Witch from the 80s. And I was like, how have I never heard of this movie? So I watched it like maybe 5 years ago, remembered nothing. And then I watched it right before this. And I have thoughts and feelings, but it is a good message. I will agree with that wholeheartedly. And please, Walker, don't hate me.
I don't hate you.
You might.
I'm very confused.
Okay, all right.
Like Walker, I'm a kid. I'm not quite sure. I'm 32, but I'm a kid in the 90s, and that was the first time I saw it because it was played on Disney Channel. And then come to find out my sister, it's her favorite movie. And so I sort of inherited, I have an older brother and an older sister, so I inherited their Gem and She-Ra dolls, and then Thundercats and Silverhawks and all that stuff. And so from my cousin, who's slash my sister, I inherited the love of Teen Witch. And so I always loved it. And I guess, like, with all my favorite movies, I didn't know it was bad until somebody told me it was bad. Like Showgirls, someone had to tell me Showgirls was bad before I'm like, what the
Yeah.
fuck are you talking about? And the Pirate movie and Grease 2. But unlike Pirate movie and Grease 2 and Xanadu and Earth Girls Are Easy and Voyage of the Rock Aliens and all of those cult musicals, I don't know if Teen Witch is campy or kitschy. I just think it's so endearing. I really think it's a cinematic masterpiece. Maybe I'm in the minority, but like I love it because it is a little bit campy, but I think it's a great film. What that leads into the question of Walker already answered it, and you already answered it, Ashley. It was when the first time you saw it. I was probably 5 or 6 when I first saw it because it came on Disney Channel, like the OG '90s Disney Channel. But jumping in, what do you think of the plot? I mean, it's pretty like cut and dry and straightforward. Underdog gets her wish, etc. But I think there's a lot of layers. I think it's a bad movie.
It was
I'm talking about it like it's Citizen Kane, but I'm like, it is to me. I mean, there's lots of layers of Teen Witch. I mean, I guess before we start with the plot, talk a little bit about the backstory, of course. It was intended to be a female version of Teen Wolf. And then it wasn't even
right.
intended to be a musical. But it just happened to have songwriters work on it. And of course, the infamous slash famous song Top That was actually inserted after test screenings. And so it sort of like evolved from just a female version of Teen Wolf. Then it became Teen Witch. Then it became, this musical masterpiece that it is. So it went through different evolutions, and finally it came and went with like nothing because it was released by a very small independent studio. So when it was released, it came with like no fanfare. But luckily, because of Disney Channel and cable, it attracted a cult following. But what do you think? And either one of you can guys go first. I'm here to listen. What do you think of the plot? Not running through the entire plot, but what do you think of the whole story of Louise and I guess her struggles? Again, this isn't Sophie's choice, actually, but this is my Sophie's choice.
So I didn't know that it was supposed to be the female version of Teen Wolf. That makes a lot of sense. Building on layers, enjoy that. I can absolutely tell that it wasn't supposed to be a musical. I wanted her to sing a lot. I was like, what is her song? She's gonna sing. Oh. Like, I was so bummed. I was like, I need more singing. But plot wise, very Dumbo in the you had it in you the whole time. I very much like that she didn't want to cast a spell on Chip from Friends, who's 10 years older than her. I was a little upset by that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's very geared towards, you can tell, like adolescent girls or preteen girls, which I can absolutely appreciate. It felt a little like an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? To me, / after school special. I like both of those things, so I'm not pooping on the movie. But yeah, I mean, the plot, I'm going to say right now that the family dynamic made me very uncomfortable. We can get into it later, but plot wise, I mean, I think it's pretty solid as like a teen movie. She has like a guide, and the guide helps her, you know. Honestly, also, English teachers aren't that mean. Like, English teachers are the cool teachers, so I was like, no. But also, he deserved a doll made over him. So yeah,
I'm a teacher, so I agree with you. I'm an English teacher, so that's why I'm like, thumbs up.
I mean, drama teacher, they got like down perfect. English teacher, yeah. I was like, he's like a college professor. Like, that's not how they act. But anyway.
Now, flip side, the yin and the
bride's kisses, Miss Miller.
Walker, what do you think of the plot?
The plot, you know, I think watching it as a kid, you really kind of fall in love with the story, but watching it later, as an adult, I really saw a lot of the plot holes and there's sort of continuity errors, but the fact that it's so campy and it's so silly, really makes it even more endearing to me. And I love the story arc of, you know, the classic, the underdog, and she's sort of overlooked, but then she realizes that, you know, she has a lot of power. And once that guide, Madame Serena, comes in and sort of shows her who she really is, then she takes that and really runs with it. And she uses her power to be the most popular girl, but then she realizes that really she didn't need any of that all along, because she was so cute and so fun and so lovable. She really realized that she had the power all along. So
all she had to do was curl her hair, like let it be curly, baby.
Yes,
like that's all you needed.
She gets that turntable, and then she just starts going around and around and around and around and around and around. And then it's like she has this whole cool makeover, and it's just like she's got the denim and she's got the teased hair, and it's like she's just coming down the stairs like boom, 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 boom.
I would wear everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I loved it all. I was like,
and this denim. The nerdy guy that like disappears, and then he's like, "Oh God, what are you wearing?"
I was like, get out of here, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you did. Bye. Yeah, but her clothes, bomb. Loved it. Like the sharp, like Patrick Nagel, like Angle of her blush, amazing. Hair, fantastic. Popular girl, not a fan. Louise, great. Fashion.
I have no shame or no qualms about saying that Teen Witch is one of my favorite films, and I actually, believe it or not, it's what got me into witchcraft. So, Teen Witch, like, my segue into my lifelong, like, path of witchcraft. It's because of Teen Witch, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be Louise one day," you know? And I'm an Aries, so, like, I would totally make people do whatever. Not fall in love with me, but I'd make people, like, walk into the bank and I'd be like, I've thought about this. Like, I'm like, oh, I have $1 million. And then like, I really wish you would give me $1 million. And then, but I mean, I do like her character growth and her arc, of the whole like Glinda the Good Witch thing. You've had the power all along, my dear. But I don't know. I mean, I know it's not a deep film, but that's something we'll get to the end is the ending of the film and what your take is on that because it's kind of complicated. It's really complicated. I have mixed feelings about the ending of the film and some sort of like, I guess, trying to analyze really what happened in terms of that final scene. But I love the story and I think it's very sweet and it's very cute. And that film is an treasure trove of 80s nostalgia. I mean, the house Madame Serena lives in is the house from Thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Madame Serena, of course, Zelda Rubinstein, she was in the Poltergeist films. You have one of the Darrens as her dad from Bewitched. You have Edith Momoy, what's her name? Marsha Wallace, who is from Match Game. So you have all these great pop culture little icons and then 80s icons. And by the way, Robin Lively, who played Louise, her mom was the wardrobe mistress, and most of those clothes were already hers. So, I mean, like, so Louise is like really Robin Lively, who, by the way, is married to Coach Bolton from High School Musical, if anybody wants to know.
He's a babe. I remember watching that and people were like, try. And I was like, look at his dad. What's up? That's rough.
But yeah, I mean the Thriller house and so it's all such like a treasure trove of like 80s nostalgia and just camp and I know it was made on a shoestring budget, but I think it's really endearing in terms of it's very simple. There's not a lot of layers. It's very complex and sometimes like when we watch Pirate Movie or Grease 2 or Earth Girls Are Easy and Teen Witch, sometimes you need escapism in terms of something not being too heavy. Um, I'm not going to sit here and make a podcast about Les Mis or something like that because I don't like deep, weird, serious shit. So I do, but I have to teach it. But I love Teen Witch, and I think it's escapism. There's such a sense. I guess I connect with it because my cousin and I introduced it to my cousin and my niece, and they love it. Went home from Christmas. I I quoted it to my niece. She's 19. I got COVID. My niece got COVID. My brother got COVID. My brother's wife got COVID, and my uncle got COVID, and my cousin got COVID. And so I told my niece, I was like, nobody's coming to our Christmas party, Louise.
Nobody's coming to your Sweet 16, Louise.
He's so weird.
He is so weird.
30-year-old man trapped in that like 12-year-old body, and then he's like under her bed eating that candy and getting the candy all over. It's like, what are you, dude? What are you doing?
I want to know what he based his character on. Does he have like an 80-year-old bubby? Like what was the process? Because all teen movies have like if the female or the protagonist is female, she has an annoying younger brother. That's happening. Like that's everywhere. But I'm like, this is Gene Belcher, but worse. He's like Ferguson from Clarissa Explains It All, and there's just a lot happening in his weirdness. And then I was like, why did you not leave him a dog? That's what I would do with superpowers. Everyone's a dog.
Because she put him in the bathtub.
Also, who were in that bathtub? where did the bubble bath come from that somebody ran while he was making a pizza?
I don't know. That's a
I
continuity error. But
He's
that's
He's very facial. Like if you watch his facial expression, he's like, I did the liberty of ironing and moaning homework.
Yeah, like, and where did he get that bellhop costume? I loved it. It had like
witchcraft.
Witchcraft. Obviously.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And he
Any problems with the movie? Witchcraft.
either. So it's a very odd casting choice, but I digress. Do you have your amulet?
Oh yes, this is my. I didn't even realize it, but yeah, this is my mom's locket, so I could just like
I got my cousin.
Supersonic, idiotic, disconnected, not respected. Who would ever really want to go and top that? Such a waste of pretty face. I ain't even notice it. So would you take a look and really stop that? Top that. Stop that. I don't really give a about trust. Stop that. Top that.
I've never been happier in my life than right now. that was fantastic. Thank you.
So,
amulet.
That's all you really need. Yeah. Louise, no one's coming to your sweet 16, Louise.
I will post the link when I post this video. I bought my cousin the necklace for Christmas. Etsy seller now sells a necklace, and it's marketed as Louise's necklace, and it's only like $30 or something like that. So I'll post that. But it doesn't send to the UK, so I don't have to send it to my niece, and she has to send it to me. I need that necklace because God, at this point, I'm gonna have to use witchcraft to make somebody fall in love with me. I'm not preaching that. But anyway, moving on from the plot, there are some plot holes, but it's so endearing that I don't really think about it. Like, it makes me wonder where David is. You know, when David disappears, where did he go?
Mm-hmm.
I wish you would just leave me alone, and he disappears. Where did he
Yeah,
go?
and like she can dunk her brother. It's just like, oh, water gets rid of it, and it's like, well, how do you bring him back? And why is no one asking about him?
Because he was kind of a jerk. I mean,
but I loved his hair so much. And she's like, "Who did your hair, Dr. Demento?" And I was like, I love it.
He's like, "Do you want to smoke some weed?"
So I don't want any pills. No weed. No booze.
Opening hand.
Get lost.
So moving on from the plot. The music really is, to me, what makes this film. I mean, I'm obsessed with the soundtrack. And even though there was no official soundtrack released, demos, unreleased demos and rips from the Blu-ray have been released on YouTube. So you basically can have the entire soundtrack now in high quality. The two composers of the film are the Weir brothers, and they just happened to do the music for it. And they own the rights to it. And the reason that there hasn't been an official soundtrack is because, you know, it's kind of like Rockula, the cult musical Rockula. Studios own like soundtracks and own rights, but then if a studio folds, it gets left in limbo. But luckily you can get your hands on like MP3s and demos on YouTube. But to me, I mean, I even taught myself how to play Finest Hour on the piano. But the music to me makes this film. I mean, I think the music's gorgeous. And yes, it's very dated and it's very 80s, but that's why I love it. But I think the music's gorgeous. I'm like I said, I'm talking like about this film like it's an Oscar film, but I love this film and I love the music. What do you guys think about the music?
Oh, I think that was the same thing. I really fell in love with the music and just kind of like the catchiness of it and the kind of 80s kind of pop dance feel. And then, you know, you just kind of like automatically fall into the song and you could just like, you know, once it was like watching it on Disney Channel, it just kind of became like second nature. You just hear the little pop tune. It was like, I'm gonna be the most popular girl. It just, you know, those little catchy little bits, and then it kind of brought everything kind of around this kind of Madonna like character, I guess, which was like, you know, everybody's obsession, and kind of made it kind of a story arc of kind of this kind of 80s pop. And then I guess was it they came up later once they actually filmed the movie. And then once they watched the movie, they said, well, we need to go back and add some scenes. We need a rap song. So that was kind of the whole, I guess, bringing in the 80s kind of, I guess that was really big at the time, you know, and then you're trying to bring in like kind of white people doing rap. I don't know if it was right on the edge of like Vanilla Ice and all that. So I don't know, just that it seems like a time capsule, that kind of 80s nostalgic music, which is great. I loved it.
Ashley?
If I could go the rest of my life without seeing white dudes rap, that would be horrible. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. Eminem is like the one with the pass. It was right around the Vanilla Ice era. Vanilla Ice was like 89, 90. So I get it. But also I'm like, what are you wearing? There's no like cohesive, are you a band? Are you a anyway, when you said it wasn't intended to be a musical, I was like, oh, that makes more sense now. Like, because I'm watching it and normally the musicals I watch are people breaking out into ridiculous songs with lavish backgrounds and all this stuff. So when it didn't happen, except for the girl saying, I have a new cheer, and then they just danced to the radio, I was like, that's not a cheer. That song was adorable. But I was like, why is no one singing? Now I know. So that makes a lot more sense. And that gives me a different perspective of the movie itself. It would be like if people shoehorned songs into Once Bitten. There's like the one dance number at the dance. And then whoever the first pop star lady was, Shauna, what a babe. I was like, okay, Bangles, you cute. And then, so I'm assuming, just a question, her powers got her in to make that woman think that she knew her, and then she gave her jacket?
Yeah.
Was it magic? No. Okay. I'm just making sure. I was like, is she like secretly friends with a pop star? What happened? But no, I mean, the music was really fun. Similar to how I feel about Shock Treatment, hate it. The music is fun. So it's like, oh, okay, I can fast forward through the bad. I didn't fast forward through the bad. I know I don't like Shock Treatment. I know. I said I'm not going to make any friends on this. And I knew, because you asked me if I wanted to do Shock Treatment. And I was like, no, I'll be attacked. Which is fine. And I think a lot of it is, I didn't watch these as a kid. I watched Once Bitten. I watched, try showing somebody Hook these days. They're like, what the fuck you want? I was like, you had to have seen it in 3rd grade. Like, it doesn't blend to your DNA. But I can absolutely appreciate the outrageous 80s music that they included. It seemed, not in a bad way, but it seemed almost dated by that point, because that seems more like 86 music, and like 89 we're like getting into the 90s a bit more, and I was like, oh well, I still like it because I love the 80s. But the music was really fun.
Not everybody's gonna love like every cult musical. Like, I'm not a big Repo fan, but you're talking to somebody who prefers Shock Treatment over Rocky Horror. But I love.
I prefer Grease too to Grease.
Oh yeah, Grease 2 is so much better than Grease.
So I mean, I'm there. I gotcha.
But the music, I mean, the opening scene of Never Gonna Be the Same Again when she's on the rooftop, I think it's so beautiful. I love it. And I think
I agree.
It's beautiful. It absolutely is. But I was like, did I turn on the wrong movie? Because I was like, first of all, I was like, is that Tom Cruise?
That saxophone is playing.
It's all in slow-mo. And I was like, she's making like a music video. And I was like, what is she supposed to be a teenager or what? And then she wakes up and I was like, oh, I mean, that's how I dream too, totally. The song, yeah, I really liked the song. I was just like, there's shadow play, and she's like working that scarf.
I just think it's gorgeous. I think it's so gorgeous. And then of course the next song is the Rhett and his 2 friends singing High School Blues when they're rapping in the school, and he's like, do you go to high school? You know. And then of course you have I Like Boys, which I always laugh just because she's like, hey cheerleaders, I got the new cheer, and they all know it.
You know, they all like boys. They're like,
first of all, they absolutely did not all like boys. That's just statistically incorrect. But the popular girl, like did barely any of the dance, and I was like, why was she cast? Like the Kiki, who by the way is a total babe, she's like doing it all, and I was like, why aren't you the most popular girl? Oh, because you're a brunette, obviously.
Who do you think you are, Princess Di? Huh? You're too lazy to even cover your roots.
It was such a good line. I was like, burns are good.
Burnt.
And then, of
See,
course,
and then she falls in the pool, and
Mhm.
then the water reverses the spell for that. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, see, water. It does it."
and then you have the reprise of Never Gonna Be the Same Again, Shanna's version at the concert, which I think it's a completely different singer, which I think is really cool.
Didn't even recognize it.
Yeah, Lori Bruno, she sang the beginning, and she released a full demo, or somebody released a full demo on YouTube with the saxophone beginning and everything. It's beautiful. And then of course you've got Popular Girl, which I guess is the arc of the entire movie, is when everything changes. And I love, her spinning in the chair and the smoke coming out, Argentum Popularum, you know?
You okay, Louise? All right. Hi.
That reminds me of just like when Richie's nice again, she goes, he cleaned the refrigerator or blah blah blah. You think he's on drugs? I love that little tidbit. Of course. And there is, they do, like Rhett and his gang, of course, and all the guys sing that part of Popular Girl, like, hey, pretty baby, won't you?
They
Oh my
did. That's why I can't hate the white rappers that much, because they're the ones who actually sing in the movie. I'm like, all right, fine. Also, complete side note.
Come on, put it back for us. Looks like you really caught my eye. Jump in the car so we can all fly.
We shouldn't even have watched it. We should have made Walker do the whole thing, because I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Also, they all had really nice cars for high schoolers.
Yeah.
My dad actually had the Mustang that Brad. It wasn't a convertible, but it was the same color. It had the silver and then the little red band. 80, I think it was an 89 Mustang. And I was like,
Got me a Schwinn. Can you believe it?
amazing. They could have killed her. Like, we don't do that in the car. That's how you kill children. I was very upset by that.
Brad,
Also, someone needs to go through and find out how many times Brad is said, because like it's said more than Louise. I promise you. I was like, stop saying Brad. Oh my god.
Oh,
Miss
Brad.
Miss Miller.
Miss Miller.
And then, of course,
Every inch of my body was covered in Brad's kisses. Miss Miller.
he goes, who could believe tonight I was totally.
This is why you don't keep a diary.
And then what was he doing going through her purse and pulling out the birth control? He's like, oh, I think they're going to get lucky.
That guy needs to be fired.
Who does?
Also, why didn't you? He should have been fired. He's back after he takes his pants off. And I was like, they were really lax in the 80s.
And then you have the song Get Up and Move, which is actually Lori Bruno doing it, or Cindy Valentine doing it, but you have that person miming it. And then, of course, you have the best song in the film, Finest Hour. And
Yeah.
that doesn't get played at my wedding. I'm not going to get married. I think that's such a beautiful finale song. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's amazing. The guy singing is actually one of the guys who wrote the music for the film, one of the Weir brothers. And Rob, of course, everyone knows. Well, not everybody knows, but Blake Lively is Robin Lively's sister. And when she married Ryan Reynolds, is that who she married? No, she didn't marry Robin Williams. Who she married?
Blake Lively is married to Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, when they got married, Louise and her brother, Blake Lively's brother and Robin Lively's brother, did the whole reenactment of Finest Hour at Blake Lively's wedding, because Blake Lively loves that movie.
As you should.
Yes.
That's precious. I love that.
It's a beautiful song. So anyway, I digress. But I just think the music is so beautiful in this movie, and I'm glad it's getting rediscovered because of like Hulu and Tubi and other streaming platforms, and people know about it, but they sort of watch it for like it's so bad it's good. But I don't think it's one of those movies that it's so bad it's good. I
I
just
think it's good because it's good.
right.
Right.
Like,
You don't want me to answer. You don't want me to answer it. I it's funny because I texted a friend and I was like, yeah, I'm doing a podcast thing today. I just found Teen Witch on Roku. And they were like, oh man, that movie's so bad it's good. Literally what they said. So, but also
yeah,
they had older sisters. Um, so Matt is like 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me. I'm 37. So like their sisters are even older and they loved it. So like it was just kind of passed down to Matt. Um, it's just really funny that you were like, so bad it's good. And I was like, that's what Matt said.
but next week I'll be talking to people about the pirate movie. The pirate movie is so cringe, but I love the pirate movie because it's Christopher Atkins and it's Christy McNichol in the 80s, and it's music that's like sounds like it's from the Xanadu soundtrack or Grease 2. And I just love cheesy movies because they're harmless. And Teen Witch is harmless. It's a harmless viewing. It doesn't take like you have to dissect it. And I think for me it's comfort viewing. Like I have to rewatch it like at least twice a year because I feel like, oh, it's great. So we'll get into the ending and then we'll get into a couple other questions. The ending, maybe I am thinking overthinking this. The ending sort of has always made me scratch my head. So Serena and Louise go to the dance, before finest hour. And Louise takes off her necklace, which is basically her birthright, which is basically like a symbol of her power, and she throws it and gives it to Serena. What do you, in your opinion, guys, think happens when Louise throws her necklace to Serena? Like the whole scenario, like what do you think she's actually doing? Not only metaphorically, but actually.
I felt like it was a Dumbo moment. Like it was like, I don't actually need this feather to fly. Like when you're a witch, you don't have to have an amulet to be a witch. Like, so I don't know if it was like symbolic in the fact that she wanted to, I'm going to put this aside and just live my life, which if that's true, like you dumb, keep it, cast spells, obviously. Um, but yeah, it was very strange. Yeah, I'm like, oh, here, this, she's like, oh, it found you. And then she was like, oh, here, poltergeist, take this. And I was like, what just happened? Also, like, everybody in this school is 35, and, which is always true of like any teen movie. You're like, um, but she was dressed like a secretary at a law firm. Loved the dress. Loved the dress. But yeah, I felt like it was more of like a symbol of her being like, I just want things to go back to normal. I hope he likes me for me. I'm just gonna drop this. But also at the same time, like she didn't cast this spell on him to like her. She like chickened out and didn't do it and gave him a chair. So like she was like, no, did he really like me? And I was like, well, you didn't cast the spell. And yeah, he likes you. Did I miss that? Was I wrong? But like the whole time I'm like, why wouldn't he like you? You're a babe. And now
Yeah.
your hair's curly and it works for you. Um, so yeah, in my mind, I was like, Dumbo. I don't know why Dumbo is the one that I go to with the amulet, but that was my take on it.
Walker?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it was kind of like you kind of look at it in the point of it was kind of her way of relinquishing her powers and just kind of going back to kind of who she really was and realizing that, let me take a risk and see if he loves me for me. And that was kind of like that kind of her wanting to see if she could kind of like not worry about being a witch. And so it's like, well, let's see if he really loves me for who I am. And that was kind of like once she kind of gave up the amulet, it kind of became a physical metaphor of her just putting all that aside and wanting to test the waters. And then once you see in Finest Hour that he really did love her, it was kind of like, yeah, I've I'm I've got it all, you know. I didn't really need it all along. So I guess it's kind of like that kind of basic watered down, you've always had the power type thing. But I mean, that's how I saw it. So it was
But
kind of like
also,
giving up
it
her
ends.
powers.
The movie ends so abruptly that I don't think they wanted to explore it. They were like, and let people figure it out. Because it like ended and it went to black, and I was like, oh, we're gonna see them happy at like graduation or some shit. And it just was
Mhm.
like credits, and I was like, she didn't reconcile with her best friend.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the question, you're like, I would have kept the powers. Now, that's the biggest head scratcher I've ever always had. When she throws it, I mean, again, I pay way close attention to this movie. If you see her throw her necklace, actually the spotlight follows her necklace to Madame Serena. And actually, like, the light actually leaves. And so, like, it's a completely different, like, lighting that happens in the ending. Once she throws her necklace to Serena, the spotlight sort of follows, Serena, and it's like and they're in a different Brad's no longer holding her. He's, on the opposite side of the room. So I've always wondered, it's like, when she gave that to Serena, was she undoing everything that had been done, even the good things, like making Miss Malloy find that man and, what was his name? Count Lagrange?
And winning the lottery, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's I don't think I didn't fully understand her powers, because it's like when you turn 16 you get your powers. Well, that would mean that once you're 16 you have powers. Like the amulet's just like
A
a
placebo.
trinket.
It's like a placebo, you know? It's like,
Right. Like the feather in Dumbo. He could always
yeah,
fly.
you're right. That's what
But
it
like, but
fits.
she's like, I want to undo it all. And she's like, really? Now that I have this hideously decorated cottage? And you're like, uh, she doesn't know how to undo them. Like she can't throw water on her drama teacher. She's gone. So I was like, I don't really know. Yeah, ending kind of vague. But I think that was probably their intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, never thought it. I don't know. I wondered, because her and Polly, if she would have broke the spell, if she would have given her powers away, quote unquote, Polly and her are friends again. I don't know. It's because sometimes people like reverse spells, like wouldn't Brad be back with his girlfriend? I don't know. It's complicated. I've overthought this way too much. I think about this every time I watch the film. It's like, I wonder what happened. He wasn't really. Listen, hey, I'm a
I've
deep thinker.
never thought it this big. I just thought,
I've always wanted to know the answer to that question. It's like when she throws her, it's kind of, and Serena's happy. So like Serena's, I guess she's kind of like
Yeah. Is she like, do I get to usurp this power now? But like she was already a witch. She did say,
she
she's
used
like,
all her power.
yeah, this is the last of my power. But like she's ancient. So like she just turned 16. So like that wouldn't be the last of her. So is she like, oh, I have an amulet. Now I can go live in my hideously wallpapered house. The wallpaper was so bad, y'all.
I think probably that everything went back to normal. So people forgot like that they were under a spell, whatever. But then Brad was like liked her already to begin with, because there's sort of like some signs in the early film that he likes her because he takes her outside about the astronomy thing. And even when Mr. Weaver, the asshole teacher, like reads the note in class, it doesn't deter him from like asking for her help and things like that.
Yeah, and he didn't disregard her when he almost killed her with the vehicular manslaughter.
yeah.
So maybe it just grew like Jake and 16 Candles.
I don't know. I've always wondered that. And I think it's a really endearing quality. I don't know if I would have given up my powers because, like I said, I'm an Aries. And like I remember growing up, like always pretending to do that spell in my bathroom. It's like, oh, I'm not gonna get teased at school anymore, and all the kids are gonna kiss my ass. But I don't know. I don't know what I would do, but it was a very sweet ending. Any other thoughts about the ending before we move on?
I love that you're wishing for people to not make fun of you, and I was like doing Bloody Mary. Because my introduction to witchcraft was The Craft. And I was like, yes, I'm a Scorpio. What does that mean? I know nothing.
Very
I
intense. mystery.
I'm not
Mine was
mysterious. I never shut up. There's no mystery to me whatsoever. So yeah, I agree with you. The ending was kind of nebulous.
on a side note, my brother and I used to get left alone a lot. He used to babysit me, and neither one of us were old enough to order things off the TV. And I remember that in 1996, Sabrina the Teenage Witch came out, and I wanted the doll, and I was like, Jacob, call. Jacob, call. He's like, I'm not 18. And so he called, and he was like, I'm so and so's parent. And then they asked for a credit card, and we hung up. But anyway. Because it was like a competition where you could win, like, I don't know. It was crazy. But anyway, moving on to your favorite quote or quotes from the film, and then we'll segue into our last question. This movie's so quotable.
So I thought of this as I was watching it, thank God, because you asked it during Earth Girls, and I was like, I was unprepared. When her dad, the only believable character in her family, 'cause everybody else was a cartoon, they were cartoons! When he's like, it doesn't matter what other people think of you, it matters what you think of yourself. And I was like, there's the after school special. And I loved it. I was like, that's true. And then so there was another one that was very similar, like towards the end. And now I'm not gonna remember it. But the dad quote was great. I was like, very, very like that's the point of the movie. Keep your hair curly, but also or believing in yourself was the other line. Like just believing in yourself and it matters what you think about yourself. As someone who struggles with self-esteem, I really appreciated that.
Talking about, that's one of my favorite, God, so gay. I'm going to have this tattooed on me one day. Yeah, excuse me, Madame Serena says the real power is believing in yourself. If you can do that, you can make anything happen.
That's it. That was the other.
That's it.
Those were the two that stood out from the rest.
Every time I hear that, I'm like, clutch my heart. I'm like, yes. I love Richie's sayings, took the liberty of ironing and wanting paper. And then he's like, I always do, nobody's gonna date you because you're a dog.
A dog. A dog.
He's so crazy. And then I love it. And she's like doing the spell, and she's like, oh, it's a new U2 song, foreign import. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, and Polly's just like, okay. And then Polly, of course, is like, look how funky he is. It is like,
I'll never be hip.
I'll never be hip. Ashley, every cult musical movie has a weird incestuous connection to one another. I'm telling you, you can't have any cult musical that's not connected. Randa, Randa is Brad's girlfriend. They're married in real life, believe it or not. I know, right? But Randa was one of the girls in Earth Girls Are Easy that she goes, I'm going home with him. No,
I'm going home with him, bitch.
Yeah, that's
yes.
her.
I knew I recognized her. I was like, who the hell is that? She's not the one with the credit card earrings. She's the other one.
And she's in Monster Squad. If you've ever seen Monster Squad.
Oh, who is she in Monsters? It's been a while.
One of the big sisters.
Oh my God.
But that movie is so quotable, and I quote it a lot. If somebody has seen Teen Witch or knows Teen Witch, that person's meant to be in your life, by the way. That person's meant to be in your life. So I end with this question. It's if you had to name the cult that follows Teen Witch's fan base, of course, do you remember what we came up with for Earth Girls Are Easy, Ashley?
No, because we had like 12 ideas.
Also, we came up with the Moaners and the Sidesteppers and the Chicken Ranchers. The only name of
I'm so sad I missed that one. God, I love Best Little Whorehouse.
My favorite movie of all time, next to Little Mermaid. But the only name I could come up with a cult that follows Teen Witch is the Popular Girls. I don't know, it's so cringe, but I don't know what else you could think of.
I'd say the top batters. I don't know.
What was it's like Madame Serena's minions.
Madam Serena.
What her name? Madam Serena? Yeah.
My best friend and I, we used to quote this all the time. Well, my former best friend. We used to quote it. She's like, "Can I make him love me?" And she's like, "Love ya? With me as your coach, he's gonna be your love slave."
Yes, the love slaves. Yes.
Love slaves. Absolutely. That's it.
Yes. That's it.
I will say on the love slave thing, they went to that abandoned house and I was like,
Oh my God. I have that song too. It's called In Your Arms.
I cannot believe that they played that on the Disney Channel. She like follows his muscle on her. I was like,
Yeah.
that's when I was like, they're not going to kiss because he is so much older than her. And then they did, and I had to immediately look it up, and he's 10 years older than her. Like, ew, I hate it. He's going to murder you in this empty house.
I know. I was just like, so they just like go into that house, and I'm just thinking, whoa, this is like something that I should not be watching. I'm like,
No,
whatever are you doing?
Also, like, she randomly took off her shoes in an abandoned house. Like, I know you're a witch, but are you dumb? You're gonna get tetanus.
Maybe I'm over romantic, but I'm like, this is a funny story. My friend, I grew up with one of these girls in high school, in middle school, etc. And I was like, "You seen Teen Witch?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "You ever heard of that, like that whole meme and stuff of like, is like you can watch an entire movie, but your parents always walk in on the wrong moment."
Mm-hmm.
That moment, she's like, "What are you watching?" Explain. I love that. I love that scene. I love the whole movie. Walker actually is an artist, and you've done quite a few paintings/pieces of Teen Witch. Do you have any that you would like to show or anything that are around you or anything?
Let me see if I have something. Okay.
While he's doing that, this is my it's like a hotel key, but it's Miss Mona's Chicken Ranch. So
that.
I'm a fan. And the other thing says lock your fucking door. But that's beside the fact. But I was literally like, oh, Chicken Ranch.
That's one of the best movies in the entire world.
It's so
okay. I've got it.
Yay!
Yes. So I did this as a set. So they have Polly.
Ah! I love it.
Yes. And then we have Rhett. So it's supposed to be. Look at how funky he is. I'll never be him.
I'm dead. I'm so glad you put her in a hat. Her blossom hat.
So she takes off that hat as soon as she starts rapping, and it's like,
well, you have to.
Can't contain all that funkiness that's just emanating from her.
You are such a good artist. I love that style so much. I'm like, my whole room is just like filled with art everywhere. So
I will tag when I put these, and then you'll lead down a rabbit hole. He likes really obscure things too. Great, the obscure.
And I do art restoration. That's my day job. Yeah.
Oh my God. I could just watch you work and I would never have anxiety again. I'm sure you have anxiety.
So chill.
ASMR of you doing like art restoration.
I follow so many of those pages. Like the people do like art. Oh God, repair shop. Love. Anyway, I'm done.
Oh, sorry. This is the last question. The legacy. We always talk. We diverged into all of this. The legacy of this particular movie. Now, thank God it's never been remade. It was supposed to be remade in 2008 with Ashley Tisdale, but the rights fell through. And then because the rights fell through, they were going to adapt it for stage. And there actually is a concept album you can listen to and buy on iTunes called Teen Witch the Musical. What do you I don't hope for a remake, and I don't hope for some, modern version of Teen Witch, but I do hope for something in terms of maybe a stage musical, because I think it could be done very campy, and I think they could take the piss out of, some of the things, but I think it could be beautiful. What do you hope the legacy of this gem will be?
I would agree with you about a stage musical because I think it goes with the campiness like The Evil Dead is like turned into a musical, and I think I just love the music of Evil Dead, and it was like, what is like all the men in my life keep getting killed by Kandarian demons? It's just, that campiness of it, and I think it develops that kind of cult thing. Like, and there was the whole development of the Shock Treatment as a stage musical, right? And
I would
I mean,
love that.
It
so
was
that's
okay.
what I think, stage musical, yeah.
I agree. This absolutely lends itself to be a stage musical. Like Earth Girls Are Easy probably wouldn't work, just costume wise and like the extravagance and Angeline and all that. But like this, like you can't have Angeline on stage. You just can't do it. But this totally, like, with, like you were talking about, like shoestring budget, like there's nothing outlandish that would need to be recreated on a stage. And then all of the characters can sing like I wanted the whole time. I would be first in line. I would absolutely see this as a stage play.
Yeah. So the concept album that you can buy, the characters did sing. So Louise sang Popular Girl. She sang Finest Hour. So yeah, and I think as long as it's done where it acknowledges its roots. So like over here in the UK, they adapted Grease 2 for the stage, but they called it Cool Rider, obviously for rights reasons. But they it was really popular and it sold out, but it acknowledged like the campy cult thing of the Grease 2. So it took the piss out of it while still honoring it, kind of like Xanadu did. But as
And
long as
I know you don't like Heathers, but that's what Heathers the musical did too.
oh
Honey,
Heather's
what you waiting for? Step into my candy store. No, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't like Heathers the movie, the musical is bomb. Like it's so good, and it's campy and ridiculous, and it absolutely makes fun of the movie while still being like, we know you guys love the movie. Here's a couple of quotes that are direct. It's really good.
so yeah, and the good thing about the music is that the two Weir brothers, they own the rights to the music. So if they ever decided to do it, they could do it. But yeah, I think it would be great as long as it's not mean-spirited. So like the Showgirls parody musical is really mean-spirited and sort of makes fun of showgirls. And I don't like that. I don't know, maybe I'm protective of this movie. But as long as I know there's like a nostalgia buzz right now. So I think as long as like they play into the nostalgia thing and like how ridiculous some of the things were while still keeping the heart of like Finest Hour and like Louise, everybody feels like an outsider, you know? Um, I don't know if they kept that while also like playing it up with the whole like campy, kitschy sort of like ridiculousness of it. Because you made a point. It was like in '89, I feel like it was sort of like adults trying to like be hip and cool by saying like, "Oh, this is totally what teenagers are listening to right now." Like with like it is like
It
completely not.
reminds me of Saved. Like, have you seen the movie Saved, where like
One
it's
of my
the absolutely the youth pastor's like, don't get jiggy with like the way he talks is like he's, oh, this is what kids are saying now, and it's like you're like 5 years behind. That's kind of what it felt like in that like dated aspect. I mean, not the clothes. The clothes were perfect, but I was just like, I don't know. I don't really know that that's. But of course, none of the actors were actually teenagers. Maybe Polly was,
Except
but
Louise. She
was she a
was.
teenager?
Yeah.
That makes it even worse that she kissed him. Ew.
It was the '80s.
I don't care. It was still illegal.
But Saved is one of my favorite movies. I quote it a lot. I'm like, now that hung on a cross. Or
I'm gonna go watch it now. I love that movie.
But do y'all have any other closing thoughts on this masterpiece? And what do you want people to take away from this movie besides Ashley's qualms about underage kissing?
So sorry. I know. That's just really kidding. I mean, as somebody who just watched it for the second time as a 37-year-old, it's fun. Like, it is a fun movie. It is irreverent. It's like, you can't take it too seriously. Kind of like, it, like you were saying, like, it's a light movie. You can put it on and it's low stakes, and it's just like, just enjoy the campy music and white guys rapping.
I would definitely concur with that. I remember, what I take away from it, it's just a fun movie. And I remember one night, I just remember thinking, you know what, happiness is a bottle of wine and a movie night with Teen Witch. And I remember just like pulling out a bottle of rosé, and then I ended up pouring another half bottle, and I'm just sitting and watching this movie, and I'm just laughing my ass off. And I'm just pouring more wine, and the more I drink, the more I laugh, and the more I just have fun. It's just a fun movie. It was just such a great night. I remember it was a great, great night. Just sitting and watching this movie. It's just fun. It's just endearing, just lighthearted, and you don't have to think. Just let go and just enjoy.
And I've introduced it to my niece and my cousins and stuff, and we quote it now. And I don't know, it's one of those movies you pass on to your family, I guess, or maybe I do, to your nieces. And I
I
always
passed
ask
on
people,
Earth Girls.
huh?
I passed on Earth Girls to my sister, my younger sister. I was like, you have to watch this.
I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, the whole white. This is the last thing I'm gonna end on. You're like, you don't want to hear white guys rapping. I'm sorry. Vanilla Ice was fit back in the 90s. I know he was
I
trash,
mean,
but he's fit.
he's still cringy.
Look,
still-
word to your mother.
Yeah. I love Ice Ice Baby. I'm not gonna lie, but it's still cringy.
That's
Like,
another cult musical for you. Ice.
oh, I've seen it. I've seen it. And guess what? I liked it more than some other musicals. Like, if you give me that and Cats, I'm gonna watch Cold as Ice.
Popular girls. Thank y'all so much for being here and making my night talking
Or
about
the Top Batters or the Love Slaves.
The Love Slaves,
Love
the
Slaves.
love slaves. I
Yeah.
love that.
Top Batters.
Top Batters.
Oh, one more thing. Where did Serena's man that she made out of the frog go?
I mean, I assume he's like in the dungeon of the horribly decorated home.
He's the love slave in the dungeon. It's like 50 Shades of Grey. Like that's it, you know? He's just locked
Glad
up.
you asked. I had that answer ready.
Hey, get it.
Maybe, what's his face disappears and then Frog Guy is brought. Who knows? The fact that he was saying ribbit when they had the frog voice over it, he's literally mouthing the word ribbit. And I cackled like a witch.
Because I think David the Nerd was actually cute. I don't know. I have
Me
weird.
too. I get
Oh,
it. The hair? Love the
yeah.
hair? Yeah, they were trying to make a hot dude dorky. It's great.
Well, y'all take care and thank y'all so much.
All right.
Thank you.